Hey everyone, welcome to Birds of a Feather. Today we're working on a set of dining room chairs. We're going to be reupholstering them. And I've got my pattern pieces. What I did here was I took the old fabric and I just made a template out of that and cut it out. It's got this beautiful sort of flock design. So I have about 4 inches of fabric on either side, either end, and about 4.5 on the sides here. And what I have here is a stack of all my layers. So I've got my fabric followed by some batting here, and then I've got my foam layer, and then I've got the plywood right on top. Now I do want to warn you to be careful with some of this older plywood as it does tend to splinter. I've already had a few, so don't be doing this and brushing your hand along. Just try to be cognizant of that. So I'm just centering everything right now. I'm going to get things out of the way. I'm going to be putting on my safety goggles. I've got a pair of scissors here for trimming as needed. What I'm going to start with is placing a staple in the center of each of the 4 sides. So there's one. Come over to the other side and pull. Don't pull too hard, but hard enough that it's taut. What I like to do is turn my work and again pull slightly and staple in the middle. And again I'm going to turn my work. It's just easier than reaching over. Try to center it as best you can, and pull up in the center and place your staple. Oops. Sometimes you get misfires. Let's try that again. Okay, it could be that I'm out of staples, so I'm just going to check that. I'm going to detach from my air compressor first before I open it up, and as you can see I'm totally out of staples, so let's just get a few more and put them into the gun. This plywood is fairly thin, so I'm using 1/4 inch staples, but I really should probably be using something a little heavier, maybe 3/8, even 1/2 inch. It doesn't matter if it goes through into the foam. So I'm going to do my initial round with these because I find them easier to take out when I have to. And then when I go in between the other ones, I'll come back with a deeper staple. So make sure you're getting them the right way up. Just lay them in. They do like to break apart. Okay. Close it up and we're ready to go. To connect the hose, you're going to pull back, insert, and then release. And that connects it. So let's try this again. Just going to pull taut. And there you go. We're back in business. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come along and I'm going to put a few more staples in, but I'm going to stop just shy of the corner, a couple of inches away, and that's so I'll be able to fold the fabric better. So come on this end and just put maybe another 2 in. Again, I'm going to turn around and work on the opposite end. Some people will tell you to go back and forth. I don't do that. I just find it more convenient to do it like this. I think it's okay. And again, watch for those splinters. I just felt something in my knuckle there, so Just be mindful of those splinters. If you have a plywood that's prone to that. Also be mindful of where your screw holes are. That'll come into play as we do the corners. You don't want to cover them up with fabric because it is hard to get a screw through the fabric and then into the wood. Okay, so one more side to go. I'm just going to flip it around. And again, pull up. Make sure you're tight. And again, I misfired, so just make sure you're engaged with the safety and then press the trigger. Sometimes if you don't press down hard enough, you're not totally engaged. There, we're good. Helps to be ambidextrous. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the back. So I'm going to turn this around. Straighten out my paper here. I'm going to bring these two corners together. Arrange it like so, just straight out. Then I'm going to come along and straight up and down, I'm just going to cut this corner off. And I end up with a bit of a diamond shape here. Sometimes you'll have a square, depending on how you bring that together. I'm just taking off the excess so that I can fold it. For the back, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it as if I'm doing hospital corners. And then here, I'm going to be mindful of where my screw hole is. So I'm going to notch out around that. Like so. Just making sure it's exposed. And I'll bring the camera around and I'll show you how I'm tucking this. What I've done here is I folded my edges together. And I just took the scissors and I cut straight up and down. I ended up taking a square corner out of that side. So here on this corner, I'm working on one of the back ends. And I just want to show you that I'm actually doing much like a hospital corner here, pushing this over, stapling this. Now I'm going to bring this over and staple that in place, and you get a nice neat fold there. And that's for the back. Just make sure it's nicely tucked, and then I bring this forward and I'm going to staple it right here and again right here. And as you can see, that gives you a nice neat tucked corner there. So I'm ready to do the same sort of tuck in this corner here, and sometimes you'll find that you've come a little too far to the edge and will have to back off one of the staples. So just get yourself a tool like this. Again, I'm gonna fold in my hospital corner like so. I'm gonna put a staple right there just to hold that in place. Then I'm going to bring my excess fabric into a fold like so. And I'm going to come along and staple, and again here into the corner, just to hold that in place. Then I will tuck that right in, as so. Get that in there with your finger. And then you want the corner to be straight here. or at least I do. I mean, you can leave it like that as long as you're consistent on both sides. But on this side, I did tuck it straight. So I'm going to do the same on this side, just to be consistent. So once you've got that, you can ease off on the folded fabric. Bring that forward so it's nice and tight. And then I'm going to give it a staple right here in the corner. Just beware of where that screw hole is here. So I will be cutting that back to ensure that it's exposed. Just take an opportunity to do that now. You can see it's right there. So now I'm going to add the staple back where I originally took it out to give me some room. Now, when I'm done everything, I will be coming back and putting in more staples in some of these gaps so that it's held really, really well. Now, when I flip it over, you can see it's looking quite nice, but that is the back of the chair, so you're not really going to see that once it's in place. Now I'm going to be working on folding the front here. So this is the seat that I'm modeling this one after, and I just want to show you that at the front I've taken 3 tucks here, and the same with the other side. I'm just going to swing this around, also 3 tucks, and the fabric is folding outwards towards the back. So if you do one, you just want to be consistent in all of them so that they match. Now, I don't know if there's any right or wrong about wrapping this type of corner, but that's just the way I did it. And I think as long as they're consistent and it looks good when you flip it around on the front, then you're good to go. So I'm going to continue with folding the front as you see here. So with this one, we're going to start with the tuck that's closest to the back. That's my back side right there. There's our screw hole. So I am going to trim just a little bit away. And again, you want to be within that 1.5 inch tuck gap here, here to here. So I've got this one beside me, and I'm going to be looking at it to try to match it up as I go. So you're going to push forward and tuck, bring your middle finger around, and pull up. Now as you're doing that, you want to pull this forward to try to get out any creases. So pull an overlap and insert your staple. So first tuck is in. Now we're going for the middle one here, as you can see. Just going to give this a tuck. And I find putting your forefinger in there and using your middle finger to tuck, and then use this hand to pull back to make sure you've got it nice and tight. Now that looks a little too far away, so I'm going to have to move it over and start a little further this way. So that's looking better. Tuck and pull back. And I'll add my staple. Here's my second one. And then as I showed you on the other side, this last one is just very straight on with the edge. So it's kind of parallel, straight up and down. So I'll try to do the same thing here. Bring this over. And I'm happy with that, so I'm going to come up close to the corner, but not quite. Put a staple in. Then come up to where my gathers are. Put one right beside, and one right there. There's one side, and there's the other side. It's looking really similar. I'm gonna flip it over. And then I'm gonna continue putting staples in, and as you can see, I've got a wrinkle here, so I can release that and just pull it back a little more just to get that nice and tight. So you will find that occasionally you're gonna have to release staples and just fix up at the corners especially, to prevent these kind of gathers here. I like to rock it under each side and then bring it straight up. There, now you can smooth it back. And then I'm going to come and put one here and one there. And now it's perfectly smooth and flat, no wrinkles, nice and taut, but not too tight. And there you go. That one is done. I'll just flip that over and show you. There we go. I've got my 2 tucks at the side. Now I'm doing the last one. And it's going to be parallel, so it's going to be straight on. So you're just going to tuck. So that's as tight as I want it. So I'm going to pull back. Now this, it's looking like I came over too far, so I'm going to release that and fix that later. Be mindful of where your screw hole is, which is there, so we're fine. We're good to go. I'm going to put a staple right here. And right along that line. And that's nice and tight. Got my 3 tucks. And back here, as I mentioned before, sometimes you just have to back off on a staple, just undo it, which is why I use the 3/4 to do my initial pass. And then what I'll do is I'll come in with deeper staples in between these ones. You just never know what you have to back out. So that's why I use the shorter staples on my initial pass around. So I'm going to straighten this out, bring that back smoothly, and there. And I'll probably release this one too. I think one more should do it. There you go. Put one in between. And that should be good. So when you turn it around, it's looking really nice, not puckered. And we've got the folds here coming nicely. And the curve is fairly nice around the edge. As I said, what you're going for here is consistency between all of your seat cushions and also on the seat itself. So we're going to mirror this side on this side. Now that all the stapling is done, I'm going to come back with some longer staples. I'm using 3/8 of an inch, and I'm going to fill in between just to give some added grip, and then I'm going to put on the dust cloth, going back to the 1/4 inch staples just for that. Because some of this old wood does splinter, I can see I've got wood debris on the top of my fabric here. You can either take one of those rollers or just a piece of tape, and you can just go and pick those up. As you can see, there's quite a bit of debris that comes off as you're stapling. It just tends to flake with some of these older pieces of plywood. The other thing I should mention is that on each of these chair seats on the label, I hope you can see that, I marked them with a number. So since that's going to be covered, I'm going to take a piece of green tape and just ensure that I transfer that to the tape so that I can match this up to the chair. And that'll make it so much easier, just in case the screw holes are a little bit different on each one. That'll make it so much easier to match it up and get them put back together again. Before I put on this dust protector, I'm just going to finger press it. This takes a crease really, really well. As you can see, there's your crease. So when I take it to the seat, I'll be able to fold it in. All 4 sides are done. We're now ready to put on the dust cover. So I've got it sitting on top. I've made note of the number that's written on the label here, and I transferred it onto a piece of green tape so that I remember that for later. I've just finger pressed the fabric under here. You can also fold under the corners here because you don't want it to stick out beyond your fabric. You don't want to see that. So I just tucked that back. So I've got a staple here. I'm going to come across and do the same to the middle here. And just tuck it back a little more if you need. You don't want to be seeing it. Now you're not going to stretch it, you're just going to gently place it. And I'll add my staple. And I'll just finger press that along. Now I can add 2 more either side. So I'll come on this side and this side here. Going to do the same on this end. And I'm going to turn it around, and I'll staple in the middle of the sides also. Just finger press it under. I'll add a staple here, and I'll add one here. Now, before you get too far, you just want to make note of where your screw holes are. So I've got a screw hole right here. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to use a sharp awl here. Just feel for where that is. And just go ahead and punch through so you know where that is. I'll do that along all 4 sides here. It's just a lot easier to do that before you get too far ahead. It can be tricky to locate once all the fabric is stapled on. There, so now I've located all 4 of my screw holes and I can continue to staple. So I'm just going to come along and staple about every inch or so until it's all complete. I like to go back and forth when I'm doing this. You can go all the way around, but I just like to make sure that it's properly on here. And you don't want the fabric to interfere with your screw holes either, so you might have to re-punch through. So I'm going to go ahead and do that before I permanently secure. And again, I'll do the same on all four sides. So there you go, one done. So here it is done. And if you like, you can take your awl and just ensure that the screw is able to pierce the fabric. And then you're good to go. Be sure to subscribe and ring that bell to get notifications of our upcoming projects. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and coming along with us on our journey to feather our nest one upcycle at a time. Thanks for watching. Join us again soon for another flip on the fly.